are recording. All right, so let's talk about our agenda. So maybe, where is it? Sorry about that. I'm trying to find my agenda here. There we go. Okay, this is what we're doing for today. So our learning goal is what we're trying to accomplish here, and that's I, meaning you, the student, can explain how each of the colonial regions, New England, Middle, and Southern, differed in terms of their economy and resources. So in other words, what we talked about last week and what we also talked about Tuesday is the fact that we have three groups of colonies. They're not just all 13 called one. They're called the original 13 colonies, but the fact that we are grouping them into three different groups means there's going to be some differences between these three colonies, these three groups. New England differs from the middle, which differs from the southern colonies, okay? Excuse me. So we're going to review part 2, which was posted yesterday. If you did submit it, you'll have a chance to resubmit it after we go over it again. That's fine. And we're going to discuss the exit ticket. All right. So and what you're going to notice is I'm going to be sharing and unsharing several times because I have to, otherwise it freezes for some people. So that's why I'm doing this. So just bear with me here. All right. So. All right, no, somebody's popping in here. Hang on a minute. All right. Morning, Jordan. Again, if you're just okay, I got to add these people. Hang on a second. Okay, if you're just joining us, you need to have the assignment up from yesterday that was posted as your in terms of the part 2. Okay, so here I am on today's page. All right, trying to make these things easier for you to follow in terms of steps. We're going over the assignment together now. Once you have reviewed the assignment, you can submit it here. If you've already submitted it, you can resubmit it afterwards so that you have a better understanding if you need to correct something, okay? We're going to talk about the exit ticket, which I've made this big giant ticket for you to not miss afterwards. We're not doing this yet. We're going to go over the assignment, okay? So everybody have the assignment up and we're going to go over this together. If you cannot find the assignment, it was posted yesterday under period 6. So you go to the course page, go to period 6 and find the document and I'll show you what it looks like here, okay? And again, I have to reshare and share each time because it freezes for some people. Okay, this is what you should have in front of you on your screen. Again, if you do not have this, you can find this and download it and just put it in Notability. It's from yesterday. So you go to the 26th, click on period 6, find this assignment, okay? Now, this map shows you the 3 different groupings of colonies. And again, from north to south, because north cardinal direction would be here, north to south, you see that New England's is the furthest to the north, then the middle colonies, and then the southern colonies, okay? And then the names of each colony is within each grouping. So there are 4 in New England, there are 4 in New England, 4 in the middle, and 5 in the southern, all right? And if we scroll down, this is what you should have. I went ahead and filled this in because this is essentially what we already identified on Tuesday and from last week, okay? So if the names on your screen or on your version do not mirror these, please make those adjustments right now. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do that. Now, again, this is essentially just going by what the map up at the top is saying. So all you have to do is read the map and then fill out these columns, okay? So again, I'm going to give you about a minute or so to adjust those. You can obviously go back because all you're doing is pulling the names from the map, okay? And I know that people are asking, why are we using a lot of maps? Well, we're talking about geography to start. So we're not going to be as heavily involved with maps once we get started with the year. but because this standard involves geography, we do a lot more with maps, okay? Okay, so again, all I did was I pulled the 3 names that are on the map, New England, Middle, and Southern, because I'm identifying the 3 regions, which are on the map. And then I'm writing down the 4 in New England, the 4 in the Middle, and the 4 in the Southern, okay? Now, you don't have to do it this way, but I wrote them down geographically for the most part from north to south. You don't need to switch them as long as you have these 4, and these 5 in the correct boxes. Okay, so this would be New England, this would be Middle, this would be Southern. Okay, I don't know if you can see my cursor here. Anyways, is there anybody that needs more time with that? Okay, number 3, and this is something, if you remember on Tuesday, when we discussed, I more or less told you that we were going to be focusing on this question, and I went ahead and kind of indicated that these should be highlighted because last week when we identified farming ability, the poor farming colonies happened to be the same 4 in New England, the 4 that were mediocre or okay. You can also use okay for this one. I'm sorry, I don't know why that should have just said okay instead of mediocre, but mediocre and okay are the same thing. Those happen to be the middle colonies, and then the 5 colonies that we identified as best for farming just happen to be the 5 that are in the southern colonies. Okay, it's not a coincidence. It's not. But we went ahead and identified those 3 as similar, and that's what we talked about on Tuesday. Okay, is everybody with me? Okay, I cannot see everybody's. If you have a question, because I have my screen shared, I'm going to try to open up something on my other device. If you're having issues, just you can ask me a question. You don't need to necessarily use the hand raising thing because I can't see it all the time. Okay. So now we scroll down to the next part. These resource maps. Okay. As I mentioned to you on Tuesday, you had 1 for New England because those are the New England colonies. You had 1 for the 4 middle colonies because the map says right there, the middle colonies, those are the 4 listed there. And then we have the southern colonies, those 5, all right? And so what we have to do is we have to scroll down to the very last page, okay? And so what we have to do is this is the best way to do this. Don't go 1 resource at a time, go 1 map at a time. So in other words, fill out 1 column at a time. And I'm hoping that you did that because that might have been a little bit more of a time saver, okay? So what we need to do is we now need to complete and make sure that we have this chart completed so that it reflects exactly what the map for New England and the middle and the southern colonies is telling us, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask people to tell me how many did you bubble in for each resource in each colonial region. So we're going to start with New England. How many should we have bubbled in for cattle? Okay, we should have 3. Should have 3 bubbled in. Okay. Now somebody please share how many for fish. Go back to the map. And again, if you're struggling with how to do this, all you have to do is you go up here, you look at what the icon is telling you, and you count up how many you see. Now, obviously, fish are going to be in the ocean. They're not going to be on land. So that's a helpful hint there. How many should we bubble in for fish?
6.
Okay, furs.
3.
Grain.
Two.
Iron. How many do we see for iron? I only see 3. What about you all?
3.
You agree? Yeah, yep. 3 works for me too. All right. Lumber. What about lumber?
4.
Rum.
4.
Whales. Look in the ocean.
4.
Indigo.
0.
Yep. Tobacco or rice?
0.
Yep. And the big thing to tell there is you have to look at the resource map. If you don't see the icon for indigo, rice, or tobacco here, then it's not something you're going to find in this region. Okay. So your chart for New England should reflect more or less what you see here. Okay. Let's go to the middle colonies. All right. How many icons do we see for the middle colonies with cattle?
3.
3.
Okay. What about fish?
3.
Furs.
0.
Okay. If you're curious about what furs are, this is basically furs, like animal furs, primarily beaver. The pelts of beaver were very desired in Europe for clothing because basically what had happened was beavers had been hunted to extinction in Europe at that time. And when they discovered that there were millions of them in North America, that reinvigorated this market for people to buy and sell furs. Okay. What about grain?
4.
Grain is something that you use to make, it's like, think of wheat as a grain. That's an example, okay? Iron.
7.
Lumber.
3.
Rum.
2.
Okay. Good. Whales or whaling.
0.
Anybody know why people would be hunting whales? What that would be used for?
Bones.
Well, it's a good guess. The fat and the oil. Well, it could be. I think if you really could get to acquire the taste of it, whaling was actually used for the oil, and the oil was used in a variety of substances, especially to burn with oil lamps. That was a big thing. So the whale oil and the blubber was used for a variety of resources that was very desirable for colonists. Okay. What about indigo? Do we see any indigo in the middle colonies?
No.
Okay. What about tobacco or rice?
No.
Yep. Again, if we're just looking at the key, we don't see those indicated on there. That's the first thing you need to look for instead of trying to find them all over the map. If they're not on the key, they're not going to be on the map. Okay. So let's pause here for a moment. Iron is a metal, and it's used primarily to manufacture materials. Okay, manufacturing is the process of taking raw materials and making it into a finished product. Okay, so if you were confused about how iron was going to be utilized, they're taking the raw material and they're making something out of it, and they're using a process to produce that. Let's go to the southern colonies. Okay, so this is our last map. All right. How many cattle do we see represented on the map?
3.
3.
I would agree. Fish?
0.
Okay. Furs?
0.
0.
Grain? Yep. Grain?
There is one fish.
Wait, there's a fish?
Yeah. If you look up by where Maryland
Ah, yes. There is. And here's here's one thing. If we see it on the key, it's going to have to be on the map. There is one in the Chesapeake Bay, which is that waterway that goes all the way up to Maryland. That was a fishing hub. It wasn't major. It wasn't a major commercial fishing area, but you do see some minor fishing there. So we do have one. And again, if we see it on the map, on the key, it's going to be on the map. Okay. Furs. Anything for furs?
No.
Yep. You don't see the icon on the map. All right. Part of the reason we don't see furs in the South is because they don't have the wide, vast forests and trees that you would see in the North. Okay. Especially New England. What about grain?
4.
Iron?
1.
Lumber?
3.
Okay. Rum?
2.
2.
Okay. Rum is something that is used when you make it's an alcoholic beverage that was widely traded and desired, and it utilizes sugar cane that came from the Caribbean area, which would be the south and east of the colonies. And it was something that was desired all throughout the colonies and in Europe. Okay. What about whaling or whales in the southern colonies?
0.
Yep. What about indigo? And indigo, again, this is this crop that has like a bluish purplish tint to it when you break it down, and you can use it to dye clothing. What about indigo?
3.
Tobacco?
6.
7
And
tobacco for me.
Oh, you're right. I saw that one too. That's all right. Some of them are hard to see. That's true. All right. Hold on. I got to get somebody popped in here. What about rice?
4.
Okay. So somebody have some, I'm sorry. Did somebody say something?
I counted 6 rice.
Let's see here. Let's double check here. All right, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, I see 6 too. All right, let's make that adjustment. So here, let's reflect here for just a second and what we're looking at here. Okay. What we have here is a good overview of what each region is going to depend on for their economy. Okay. And if we take a look here at the categories, all right, when we take a look here at the categories, a lot of these are going to be involving trade. Okay. So when we think about trade, lumber is a big one. Rum is a big one. Furs, fish. These are a lot that we're going to see where these are going to be bought and sold. Okay. And so where you see trading, you're going to see a lot of major cities with ports. Ports are where the ships come in, they dock in the harbor. Just think of like if you're going down to Lake Monroe and you're launching your boat into the water, just think about something that's about 1,000 times larger than that, and you have these humongous ships coming in with different resources. Okay. Now let's look at what kind of an overview reflection of what these mean. Okay. If we look here, we notice one thing that's very obvious. We don't see indigo, tobacco, or rice grown in the middle of New England colonies. So what is one observation that we can make about growing indigo, tobacco, and rice, besides just saying it's grown in the southern colonies? What does that tell us about those crops? What does that tell us? Well, look where they're found.
People would want to buy it.
Okay, well, people do want to buy it. It's definitely going to be something that's desired. But the fact that we're only seeing these in the southern colonies, what should that tell us about those crops? Think about what we've talked about. Think about the factors that we talked about last week with growing season, soil, and landforms. Okay. What can we kind of look at here with these three? All right.
And use a specific climate and type of soil.
Yep. These are going to desire a specific climate and type of soil. So I think we can assume that because the southern colonies are further to the south, where it is warmer, longer around the year, these three resources have to be grown in a specific southern, warmer climate. Okay, so let's think about it today in 2020. All right, where we are in Indiana, we are growing certain crops, but in certain parts of Indiana, you're probably not going to be able to successfully grow tobacco, rice, and indigo. Okay, the further north you go in Indiana, a lot of places you can't grow some crops. But if we're looking at it from the colonies, there's a reason why we're not seeing some of these crops grown in certain parts of the country. It's just not feasible. It's not possible. All right. Trying to get my line erased here. Oh, I erased my dots too. Oh, well, it's all right. Okay. So what we have to do here is we have to then use this information to go down to the next part and determine which type of economy we are going to categorize each region as. So in other words, what are we going to identify for New England? What are we going to identify for the middle? And what are we going to identify for the southern? And I will tell you right now that you need to have a different type of economy for each. It's not going to be repeating. So you have three different types of economies, three different ways that they make money, and they can only be used once. So I want somebody to tell me what they think is going to work for each of these regions. In other words, just for the first part where we're filling in the blank to complete the statement, which of these is going to work the best for New England? Now, before you answer, I realize that there is some confusion about the difference between trading and manufacturing. Manufacturing, excuse me, would involve using resources to make something, where it's more of an emphasis. Trading means they are having resources and they are specifically buying and selling them to other places and other locations. Okay, so we can do this one of two ways. We can do which one we think is the most obvious and fill that in first, or we can go in order. But I think to do a process of elimination, let's go ahead and write in what we think is the most obvious answer. So which one do you think we could answer the most in the most obvious way? Which region? So which one could we answer the most you think the most obvious way?
Southern.
Okay, let's start with Southern. What do you think is going to be their type of economy?
Farming.
Yep. The biggest reason we know this is going to be farming is because of those last three crops that are listed right here. Those. That tells us all we need to know. Okay? Because if you look at the rest of the list, the only one on this list that has any indication of farming is grain. That's it. The rest of those are not going to be something that you're going to grow necessarily. Now, I know trees, but that's different. But these three, indigo, tobacco, and rice, are all crops. They're cash crops. And a cash crop means I'm growing the crop to turn around and sell it to make a profit. Okay? So we know farming's done. So we're going to cross that one out. Let's look at the other two we have. We have trading and manufacturing. Trading means specifically that resources in that region are bought and sold specifically. All right, so let's look at what we have. We have New England and Middle. Which economy do you think is most appropriate for New England? Again, looking at your resource map.
Trading.
Okay, I would agree. And we're going to go over why in a minute. But if we have trading down for New England, process of elimination tells us that this has to be manufacturing. So that's what you should have for the three types of economies. Now, we have to then, and this is the harder part, and this is the part that some people struggle with, and I agree, and it's hard. We have to explain why. But if we go back and we look at our, sorry, I'm trying to get rid of our, I don't think I erased anything. I hope I didn't. All right. If we look at what our map's telling us here, let's take a look here, okay? Cattle is going to be trade. Fish is going to be trade. Furs are going to be trade. Iron, manufacturing. Lumber, trade. Rum, trade. Whaling, trade. Now, grain is a crop, okay? So that's more or less with farming. All right. But again, we're not trying to nitpick specifically on what each region is doing here. We have to look at the obvious here. If we have six bubbles for iron in the middle colonies and only 3 in New England and only 1 in the southern, we know that the middle colonies depend on iron production with manufacturing as a big part of their economy. Because look, it's bubbled in more than any others on this map or on this chart. So that tells me that I need to emphasize the middle colonies as having a very important part with being manufacturing of iron. It doesn't mean that they're still not growing crops, because look right here. They are growing grain. But it is something to be said that if iron is the one icon that we see the most on the map, that has to be emphasized, okay? With New England, we have a little bit of a mixture of a lot of different resources here, but let's look. Fishing is big, commercial fishing. I'm catching fish to then sell them. I'm trapping furs to then sell the beaver fur, the pelts, okay? I'm cutting down trees to make ships. I mean, look here. Go to the New England icon, okay? You see this right here where it says ships? The reason why it says ships is not because they have big parties out in the ocean and you know, put bunches of people on there to have parties. The reason why we have ships there is because there is shipbuilding. Why? Because there are all these forests. So one of the things that will happen over time is Britain, which controls all these colonies, remember, these are English colonies. England and Britain is the same thing. They're going to expect people in the colonies to make ships for their navy from the trees in North America. Why? Because there are not large, vast forests in England. They're not. So that's why you see ships on this resource map, because they are shipbuilding in that region. Okay? So let's go back here to the bottom and let's think about how we could answer these questions. Okay? Let's start with Southern. I believe the Southern colonies would have a farming economy because, according to the map, let's say resource map, crops like tobacco, rice, and sugarcane. Nope, not sugarcane. What am I doing? I meant indigo. Sorry about that. Erase that. Oh, that's not what I want to do. Hang on a minute. Okay. And indigo are the most important resources. Sorry if you can't read my handwriting. I'm using my stylus pen on my graphics tablet. Okay. Now let's go to middle colonies. I believe that the middle colonies would have a manufacturing economy because, again, according to the resource map, iron production is the most important resource. Now, when we look at New England, we can say, I believe New England would have a trading economy because, according to the map, resources like fish and furs, comma, which are traded, are important resources. Now, the reason why we're doing this is because we have to identify how these regions are going to survive living in North America, living 3,000 miles away from their home country of England. How are they going to survive over here? And the ways that they're going to survive are going to be different. What people in New England do to make money is going to be vastly different from the Southern colonies. And why is that? Because of their farming ability. Okay? Let's face it, if the Southern colonies have the best possible setup for farming, meaning the longest growing season, the best soil, the best landforms, why would they do anything different? Okay? All right? Is there anybody that has any questions about this? Because I need to transition to the last part before we run out of time here, okay? If you need to screenshot this to get caught up later, that's fine. And you can resubmit it. I'm okay with that. But I am going to move on to the next part. Okay. Please go back to the course page for today. All right. This is important. So please be here.
I have a question.
Yes, go for it.
What do we submit it to? Because like right now, the only one that's popping up is 13 colonies, geograph
Right there.
assignment.
See where I'm
Yeah.
highlighting?
Um,
Right there. So if
Okay.
you go back to the page for today, if you click here,
okay.
I'll show you. That's where it is. It'll be a turn in, okay?
Okay.
All right. So we just did number 1 together. You're going to work on number 2. And let's go to number 3, okay? This is important. Your exit ticket today will assess your knowledge on what we have discussed about the regions of colonies, New England, Middle, and Southern, and their economies. We just talked about their economies because we talked about how they made money. Now, this exit ticket is going to be an assessment. I don't want that word to scare you, but notice that I put right here this thing that's underlined. You may use any materials you wish to help you answer the question. Okay, so everybody click on the exit ticket. Click on this icon at the bottom. Now, all you need, the question itself is in the box. The directions here, we're going to go through this together. All right. Using the information you learned from our live sessions and the information from the U.S. Geography Part 1 and Part 2 assignments, please answer the following question. All right, I'm right here. Predict which region, so predict is level 4, predict which region is more likely to develop the institution of slavery long term. In other words, where will slavery be the most important for the longest period of time? Now, I realize that we have not talked about the introduction of slavery yet, but we have got to talk about this because it's the central theme in the colonies, and it's also a big part of what our standard's about. So what you have to do is you have to make a prediction of where slavery will be long term and explain where you might see slavery in these 3 colonies. So in other words, is slavery going to play a role in each of these 3 colonies, and where are you going to see slavery playing the role the longest? Okay. I would like a 4 to 6 sentence answer for this, but please note the highlighted number 5. You can use any resource that you want to answer this because you're doing this on your own. We're not doing this in a testing setting. We're not doing this, we're doing this. This is going to be an exit ticket. So use today, use tomorrow to answer this. But I want you to understand, this is a 20-point grade, and it's going to be an assessment grade. And if you're wondering, how do I need to demonstrate my level of knowledge? I put that right here. So let me explain this again. You need to make a prediction on where slavery is likely to develop the longest and be the most important long-term, and why. You need to make sure to use supporting details and evidence in your answer. You need to explain where you could see slavery being in these regions the longest and why. Okay? That's a big thing. You have to explain why. You can't just say it's going to be in this region because that's where it's important. You have to explain why. You have to cite evidence. You have to cite evidence. And this is why I'm letting you use any resource you want to answer this, okay? What questions do you have right now about this exit ticket? Drew, you have your hand up. What's up?
Do we write it down on a piece of paper
Nope.
and take a picture of it?
Nope. Your version, you're going to see a submission. It's a text box. So when you click on the exit ticket, it's going to have this, and then it's going to have a place for you to submit a text box response.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you'll submit it directly into the assignment. You don't have to do anything separate, okay? What other questions do you have? So again, let me recap. This is the question you're answering. Where is slavery going to be developed long-term? In which region is it going to be and why? You have to explain why, because if you don't explain why, you're not going to be able to reach like a level, a high level response for in terms of points. Okay. Use any resource
I
you
have a
want.
question.
Yes, go ahead.
It's not like about this, it's about turning in the stuff.
Sure.
Mine says it's not available to turn in, even though I did last time. It says access,
Assignment 2 or the exit ticket?
assignment 2.
Okay. I'll go back and look at it. If you're still having issues, just let me know. Okay. And you can send it to me via Canvas message if you have to, if it's not working. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Folks, I'm going to let you go. It's 10:45. I am stopping the recording.